our fellow Americans? Are we reaping our harvest of greed? Have we built our house on sinking sand? Why are we being ugly Americans?
Show. Today it's about breaking markets, and I mean they're breaking them in half. All right, they're ruining the markets, they're ruining the economy, they're ruining the people. It's an assault on the middle class. I want to bring you up to date quickly. I want to talk about the things that we can do, if you can, the sort of the review of what we've talked about. They're breaking foreclosure fighters everywhere they can. I'm telling you, this is truly a battle. And there are things that we can do, so we have to just keep working. We have to do everything possible. And we have to think sensibly about what kind of time, what kind of resources. You got to protect yourself, protect other people. So I really wanted to share with you some breaking news. Here is a video that is breaking the news that Obama himself is admitting he's not born in America. He's not an American. And the issue, it raises questions as to why. I believe it's an effort. He's so close to having this exposed. He'll expose him himself. That way he can spin it his way. That's my thought. Because we already know there's a court action against him. For a birth social security number. There's this huge effort and exposure to the constitutional sheriffs about the forged birth certificate. All of these things is just a real short snip. We're going to play this to start. We'll see how it plays out. But in the end, this is relatively unimportant to you and me, into our daily lives. We need to now focus on protecting ourselves, our wealth, our homes, and each other. And of course, this just plays into it. But again, there's not a whole lot we can do about this. I just wanted you to know.
And maybe I'm not an American citizen. Some people said, he has a forged birth certificate. Well, first of all, it's true I'm not American. It's true, I'm not American. Yeah, I was not born in Hawaii. I wasn't born in the United States of America. I come from Kenya. And so I think people saw my election as proof, as testimony that our society has continued to become more and more naive.
This article, you'll be able to read it. That's a short snip, and I have not had a chance. I just saw this to actually search on YouTube and see if we can find the longer format. But I already have read something on YouTube about Yahoo changing some news article. It's like, whoa, okay, now he's saying he's born in Kenya. The Obama is now spinning this. I've always thought American birth was an inappropriate requirement for president. Because I felt it was so unimportant, we used our usual technique of trivializing anyone who challenged my status with a dismissive moniker, birther. Once the public decides that a group of people are crackpots, it really takes no effort to beat back their claims. They ridicule, and this is what they've been doing with the foreclosure people. Those people are deadbeats. They ridicule them, and then their claims are moot. It's nothing. It's a powerful technique. And we need to fight against that. We need to wake up Americans that this is what they are doing. And so now, of course, Obama is saying we will now be seeking to change this silly requirement retroactively to bring the facts back into compliance with the law. Okay, so retroactively, Obama will say, well, we'll just change the law so it doesn't matter that I wasn't a citizen. It's nothing. Welcome to a dictator. Just thought I'd start the show with that. Breaking the trust, breaking the Constitution, I'm telling you. Okay, hang on to your hats. we're going to be looking at the money. Most of us, I know that I have personally not been terribly involved in the stocks or bonds or even gold or anything like that, commodities, because I'm not a trader and I haven't just felt comfortable to take any of my assets really and stick them over there and try to figure out how those markets work. However, the majority of wealth in the planet plays in these games. And so we may not have been hearing this crash and these screams in these markets. I'm bringing them to you today so that you can pay attention, be aware that at this level, this is what is going on, and it spells chaos. The first thing is this is MBS. MBS is mortgage-backed securities. This is the heart of where all of these toxic loans went. They went into mortgage-backed security trusts to be traded and bought and sold on Wall Street. And it is very important as far as the perception in particular is concerned that these securities remain stable. That's why the Federal Reserve, Bernanke, has been buying $40 to $45 billion worth of them every month just to maintain this facade of stability. So the fact of the matter is, what's happening when they say there's a liquidity breakdown? Think about what caused Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns to crash and collapse overnight. It was liquidity. Everybody wanted their money back. No one wanted to leave it there. So they started withdrawing $500 billion a day from this shadow banking cartel that they were doing, double using our loans, our notes, because the notes were supposed to have been in the mortgage-backed securities as collateral. They never got there. And so they were used as collateral for short-term lines of credit, which was the shadow banking. So all of these sovereign wealth funds and big monies around the world were putting their monies into these, if you will, lines of credit backed by notes, except they weren't really. And they're not liquid. So the collateral is very illiquid. In other words, if they're going to sell a house, it takes like 30 days or 60 days. Even in this market, it takes 30 to 45 days, even in a hot market, to actually close. It's a strung out transaction. You just don't sell it and get your money tomorrow. And so they had backed liquid assets with illiquid collateral. So when they wanted the liquid assets back, they couldn't liquidize the collateral fast enough. Smash. Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, bite the dust. And so when you have a liquidity breakdown, that is not a good thing. And this is a route for the bond markets. Remember, we've been talking about the signs, the cracks. I just showed you that link on Friday. Kyle Bass, in his little his hour presentation at that conference, I played you the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes, and basically go listen again to the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes, because he talks about, in the last 5 years I made $10 trillion, $5 trillion for this. They recapitalized the banks. We did that. The taxpayer did that via the Federal Reserve. And then at the end, it can't last forever. That is, and he called it a breakdown of a 70-year debt cycle, and nobody can call the shots for sure. So there you have it. Nobody knows. We're in uncharted territory. This is a collapsing of the system, and that's why this is a special alert. So another route for the bond markets, what they've had here is that the bid and the ask, the buyers and the sellers are further and further apart. And so what you've got is a gyration faster and further and further and further apart between what someone wants to sell for and what someone's willing to buy for. So when the buyers push down the price, the sellers eventually, if they're going to sell, have to come down. That's called a collapse of the market. That's what they did in real estate. It was just slow. It was a tsunami. Just lasted several years. This is going to happen really fast. that was just the alert. Now, I wanted to send you through a series of articles. I'm going to try to keep it short. I know we have a lot of things to do on our plates because we got to, right after this, you got to run out and you got to protect yourself. And I'm not kidding. So here's the Fed in complete disarray, and investors must brace themselves. Now, you may never be an investor. You may not be an investor, but this is really, really important to you so that you know what is going on up here because it's going to land on us. So this is one of the top economists in the world, and this is his analysis of the Fed comments. He says the Fed Reserve is now in complete disarray, and investors must brace themselves for more turmoil. This is Michael Pinto. He heads Pinto Portfolio Strategies, also said that despite a long bout of weakness, investors need to own gold, silver, and mining shares in order to protect themselves from the coming storm. And I would correct that personally, and I would say forget the shares, go get the physical. I've been saying that, go get it, before there isn't any. Okay, that's the point of today. So here's what Pinto says. We all knew that the Fed suffers from acute schizophrenia, but let's look at what their statement really said. And this was done on the 19th. So that was last Wednesday. This article was written Wednesday. He said, of course, there's no change in the amount of bond purchases. The Fed actually said we're going to continue. We might taper in September. That's what he said. But the Fed downgraded the outlook for inflation. Now remember how they've completely corrupted how they look at inflation. They've taken out food and oil. Everything that you and I use, whoops, we don't count that. Too scary. And so the outlook for inflation now is only 1%. At the Fed's last meeting in March, the outlook was for 1.5% inflation. So they lowered their outlook for inflation, which is half their mandate. The Fed, that's the point. The Fed's trying to keep inflation under control. And then they said the risks to rising unemployment have diminished. They made that bold claim even though unemployment rate was up last month, and that's based on their lying unemployment numbers. Because the unemployment is not 7 or 8%. The unemployment is much higher than that. So half the Fed wants to meet and exceed the inflation targets. The other faction wants to start attenuating, means stopping, tapering down. QE, meaning quantitative easing, right away. But they can't even agree on to do it. So they don't even agree on the data and numbers that are being produced. So that's why he's saying, okay, the Fed's in complete disarray. Bernanke will continue to be data dependent going forward. He wants to lower the unemployment rate while he is increasing the rate of inflation. So just to give you a little color on what the Fed is doing, so he now backs up and he says, okay, now let's look at the big picture. The Fed's balance sheet is now $3.45 trillion. And everybody knows it's going to grow by $85 billion a month. Here's an interesting fact. The Fed's balance sheet is up 16% year over year, and by the end of December, it will have jumped a staggering 30%. Again, that's the size of the Fed's balance sheet. How much fake money they're creating to inflate assets by 30% just in 1 year. So when the people in the mainstream media repeat like parrots, where's the inflation? The inflation is here. Inflation has come into the size of the Fed's balance sheet. This means that inflation has been directly infused into the bond market. That's why it's going to collapse first. It's the biggest bubble. This also means that when these banks have their assets purchased by the Federal Reserve from freshly printed credit, which we know comes out of got some thin air, those banks buy stocks, bonds, and real estate. This is why we're reigniting the stock bubble and the real estate bubble. Of course, the biggest bubble is the bond market. Meanwhile, the price of oil is basically back to $100 a barrel. And the Fed Reserve's mind, the rising price of oil doesn't count in its inflation metric because it is stripped out of the headline CPI reading along with food. So it's completely corrupt. The game is completely rigged. They're completely changing whatever they want so that they'll say the inflation rate, which doesn't have an ounce of meaning to you and me. If you went to the store, you know what I'm talking about. If you go to the gas station, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, that was Wednesday. On Thursday, and again, this is an amazing, stunning volume while gold and silver go down. By the way, I just checked before the show, and gold is trading at $12.85 an ounce. That's exactly $100 less than it was just a week ago. And silver is broken the $20 mark. It's down to $19 and change, 63 cents. It fluctuates, and gold fluctuates up and down. But considering this, that's what's amazing. You got to pay attention. You would think with all of this sloshing around, all these things I'm going to read to you, that there would be some fluctuation in the price. Which just goes to show exactly what this guy is saying. Today, one of the savviest and well-connected hedge fund managers in the world spoke about the smash in gold and silver markets and what to expect going forward. He's in Hong Kong hedge fund manager William Kay also discussed the stunning volume in the gold and silver markets, as well as the suspect nature of the trading and the propaganda coming out of the U.S. Federal Reserve. He's 25 years ago. He worked for Goldman Sachs in mergers and acquisitions, so he knows what's going on. Let's pay attention. So we're in the midst of a massive gold and silver plunge here. What are your thoughts on the action we're seeing? And this is the answer. This is what Kay says. It's the end game of a fantastic manipulation of the markets. I'm looking at my screen now as we talk. I'm in LA, but we're still in Asian trading time. With London just coming in at the moment, we've traded over 94,000 contracts today. And to give you a perspective, on a normal night, it would be 20,000. So they're 5 times normal trading. The question is, who's selling these contracts? And this is the paper gold. Who's selling these contracts that are at multi-year lows? Who's so keen to sell? And if you need to sell, why are you selling at the worst time of day? Why are you selling in Asian time, which is always the thinnest section of trading? Why don't you wait for Chicago or London to take over? And the answer is very obvious. The markets are clearly and blatantly being manipulated. The people doing it have clear price objectives. My guess is they want to see a print below $1,300 on gold before they're done. That will allow people trading for the bullion banks. Remember, we talked about the bullion banks, and the fact is they've been lying. They don't have the gold. So the people are trading for the bullion banks, and they will get to make profits on their shorts. These are massive short sale contracts. They want the price to get down there low enough so that they can make the profits. The bullion banks, from the commitment of traders reports that we've seen, plus other information we've gathered, strongly indicates that the banks, listen carefully, which are the centerpiece of this conspiracy, and I would add all the other money fraudulent conspiracies, the SEC, the LIBOR, the foreclosure fiasco, the toxic loans, the drug laundering, all of the centerpiece of the conspiracy, have shifted rapidly from being on the edge of default to being net long, in some cases very long. So they, the bullion banks, have taken the opportunity that's been provided by the cover from what would appear to be official intervention in what I suspect is the Fed and possibly the ECB to take the other side of that trade. Now they are extremely net long, and that sets the stage, in addition to a very promising technical picture for a very powerful rally as we look at next week into July and beyond. The second half of the year could be extremely explosive on the upside for gold and silver as well. So, on the 22nd, on Saturday, here's an article talking about how it is the Fed that's orchestrated this plunge. And you and I already know it's on behalf of the bullion banks. Now pay close attention to this. This is the heart of the conspiracy. Today, a former U.S. Treasury official said that the U.S. Federal Reserve orchestrated Thursday's massive gold plunge, which shocked market participants. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts also warned that we are on a path which will send the U.S. into total chaos. This is all about the people's money, the people's wealth, the people's livelihood, the people being able to survive. Homes are bad enough. This is everything. This is our economy. This is our trading mechanism. This is the heart of where we live. What if you don't have any money and can't go to the grocery store? Just think about that, all right? Below is what Dr. Roberts had to say in this powerful interview. So Eric, the interviewee, says, we had the Fed out with 2 straight days of propaganda, and that was followed up by a smash in gold and silver. And Dr. Roberts says, yeah, that's true, and it shows how irrational markets are. In fact, there was nothing new in the Fed's statement. The markets have known for a long time the Fed was going to taper the bond purchases. Duh. So the lack of any real information in the statement makes the market reaction seem puzzling. And it actually suggests that the too big to fail banks, which now have all these investment divisions, they're not loaning anymore, give me a break, they're playing this game. They had inside information, the Fed's statement, and used it to short the stock, bond, and gold markets. Massive short positions. They, the banks with the insider information, cleaned up on this Fed statement. It's entirely possible that's what the Fed Reserve is doing, is orchestrating events that make huge profits for the banks, and that's how they get recapitalized. What are your thoughts on the gold and silver smash? Well, it's clearly intended to drive down the price because they always pick the most unlikely time that anybody who ever wanted to sell for the best price would pick to sell, at the very bottom. They pick a time when unloading a position like that is guaranteed to drive the price down the most. That's the giveaway, that they're trying to drive it down. They've made it plain. Nobody else in their right mind would do this. Okay? The other giveaway is the amounts that are suddenly unloaded at one time. No real investor would ever unload any position in that way. So these are obviously orchestrations by the Fed, and that is the intent, to manipulate gold and silver prices lower. I suspect it is related to the concern about the dollar. I think all of the attack on gold is part and parcel of the process of establishing that there is no safe haven from the dollar. The Fed has to do that to protect its quantitative easing policy. I myself don't think there's any prospect of the Fed ceasing that policy, because if it doesn't print the money to support the stock and bond markets, they will collapse. How do you see this playing out going forward? Inquiring minds want to know. Listen very carefully. I think, says Dr. Roberts, what we have to fear is that eventually all the money that's being printed actually finds its way past the banks, past asset inflation, and gets into consumer inflation. Once that happens, the dollar will collapse and will add to the domestic consumer inflation, and will be faced with hyperinflation, and yet there are no jobs. So what does the population do when it's got no income? And of course, by then, we don't know what else the Fed will have done to wreck the remaining wealth. And that really is the plan. They are planning to wreck the people's wealth. That is the point. It's an assault on all the wealth of all the people, particularly middle class and upper middle class. You wait, we're not even done. We know they've already wrecked savers dependent on interest income. If the bond and stock markets go down, there's more wealth lost. The manipulation of the gold market destroys more wealth. So you may end up with a population where their wealth has been largely exhausted. They've got rapidly rising prices, no income, and no jobs. That's total chaos. That's total political instability. That's what I call Armageddon without nukes. So, what do you do? What should we do? And he says they should persevere. Eventually, the manipulators lose control. And at that time, what price could go up other than gold and silver? I can't think of one. Certainly not bonds or stocks, certainly not the dollar's exchange rate. So in the end, if you can survive the stress, unless you believe a full-fledged recovery is on its way and will be here by June next year, and everybody starts laughing, unless you believe that, sticking with gold and silver is the only option you have. And as the Fed is trying to prop up the perception of the dollar, we've got Fox News going right along. Gold extends slide as dollar rises, wink, wink. Gold fell up 1%, hurt by a stronger dollar. Yep. The metal fell closer to a 3-year low on investor pessimism following the sharp sell-off last week, triggered when the Fed said it would cut back its monetary easing by mid-2014. Do they even know how stupid that sounds? That whole comment. This is why it pays to really understand the markets. Then you read something like that and you go, it's investor pessimism? You would think that investors would be buying, say, the whole thing. They don't even know what they're saying. They're just parroting the talking points. This is a talking point parrot. I wanted to point that out. All right, so now you've got criminal paper derivative selling used to crush the gold market. And this is the point. I've done some calling around to key contacts around the world regarding this gold and silver smash, and again it has to do entirely with the paper market, with options, and with large entities utilizing derivatives. What is being done here is criminal, but it'll never be investigated. It's a war going on in the gold and silver markets. You and I have mostly missed it. I'm bringing it to your attention because it is crucial. It is crucial. It's a war to destroy the psychology of people invested in this sector, to destroy them mentally. And I'm going to show you in a minute who else it's going to destroy. This is a manipulation of the paper market, not the physical market. Gold is still being looted from the exchange traded funds, ETFs. And physical gold continues to hemorrhage from Western central bank vaults to Eastern vaults. If they are selling in places like the US, you can bet your bottom dollar they're buying in Shanghai. And that's where your physical gold is going to end up. We've already seen 6 or 7 of these types of declines since 2002, even though this one has been particularly long and brutal. But investors in the sector have remained mentally tough and hang in there. This is all a part of a desperate effort by the West to collapse the psychology of smaller participants around the world and even to shake up institutional players. But the reality is, this is the reality, there's only so much physical metal, gold or silver, to go around. Physical gold is in very short supply. So as soon as this is over, as soon as you're done, in fact, pause right now. You don't need to finish the rest of this. You can come back and do it later. Go out and get yourself some physical gold if you still can. Because in the end, it'll be gone, and you will not be able to. And so the fact is, eventually this game that is being played is going to end. This action is being forced mostly through the use of seemingly endless paper derivative-related futures selling and options. But as key entities are called upon for the physical gold, eventually the fraud will unravel because they will not be able to deliver. So this is key information. It doesn't matter what the price is, because it's already below the cost of mining. So here they're talking about, this is the largest volume of the day. This is trading of gold, the shift of the global balance of physical gold. And so what he talks about is, we are below the true cost of production for both gold and silver, and it makes a good deal of sense for the central banks to be taking anything and everything that's offered. Fundamentally, this will have a significant catch-up impact. Needless to say, we're getting reports of extremely large allocations of gold, but also far larger direct producer deals being struck outside the paper markets. The one question is just how long this paper market selling can continue to drive price when such a massive transfer of physical is underway. What you need to understand is that the physical gold, which they're manipulating, and I believe it's also, well, it's definitely to prop up the dollar and it's to keep panic out of the streets. Just imagine, what if they allowed the gold, what if gold was now at $5,000 an ounce? What would you think? That's what they're fighting against. They don't want that perception until they've gotten everything they possibly got their hands on, until they've recapitalized the bullion banks, and then they're going to screw everybody. Right now, they're screwing all the wealthy people because they've pushed these values down. Many of these people have given up, have caved in, have sold their stocks and bonds because this price is now below the cost to make it. This is the one on the evidence of collapse. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I want to show this first. This is I wanted to prove to you, I'm not just making this stuff up, because people are going, what? I thought it only costs, X amount of cash to mine for gold. But the trouble is, that's just the cost of mining. You have to add all the costs to really get a true picture. And these analysts have done this. They've gone to the publicly traded companies, gold and silver miners. They look at all their costs and notice how the cost has skyrocketed from 2008 to now. The costs have almost doubled in 2 years' time. And so look at this. Down here's 600, here's 800. So this is 800. Here's the cost of, in 2009, per ounce. Costs, all-in costs. This is all the expenditures, all the employee pensions and payroll and all the taxes and, all of that stuff was 800 here. Now they're saying in the last quarter of quarter two of 2012, it's almost $1,500. So what they are doing, see, this is all in cost of gold mining. What they are doing is breaking the mining companies. So what that means, with all of this in mind, I believe gold will never go, he's saying, below $13.50 an ounce, because that's the cost of doing business. That will be the ultimate floor. If it does, it'll quickly rebound. And of course, he's writing not from the perspective of the fact that the global bankers are manipulating the price, and they'll do whatever they want. And they will do whatever they want for their benefit to ruin everybody else. So they are going to put these mining companies out of business. They're going to drive the mining companies' stock down. They're going to buy those stock. Duh. And then when they allow the price to rise, they'll be sitting on the mining companies. And I said to my husband, boy, does that sound like real estate? And he said, that's exactly what I was feeling. Because we've been in real estate, and we own property, and we've watched them drive the price down below the cost of construction, ruining all the developers, all the builders, and of course, let's think about the psychology. Same psychology. The people that drive this world, that drive these institutions, they are the entrepreneurs, they are the builders, they are the people willing to take the risk on themselves. They see the opportunity, they're willing to work hard for it. They're the builders, developers, and producers, people that produce. That's really been driving the middle class. That psychology, those people are being systematically destroyed. Well, let's go destroy them over in real estate. Whack. So they push the price down. It takes 3 or 4 years, drives all the developers upside down, bankrupts everybody, drives all the investors in real estate upside down, bankrupts them. They can slip in with hedge funds and buy up these cheap assets. Okay, now let's look over here in precious metals. Let's just drive that price down, ruin these companies. We can pick them up at pennies on the dollar. Then we'll have all of their assets, because they can't produce for less than what we can drive that price down to. This is a breaking of all of our producers. So think about it. When they take over the producers, then they produce the gold and silver. Guess what the prices are going to be? As high as the market will bear, if they even bother selling it. Notice that silver, the cost of producing silver is $30 an ounce. The lowest cost, I looked at several, they'd just done an analysis of last year, and there was one at $22 an ounce, a couple at $25, 2 or 3 at $29, one at $30, one at $40. They're saying, oh, gee, that guy's going to be out of business if they can't get their cost in line with what silver will sell for. You can't sell for less than what your expenses are and stay in business. And so if they're saying the marginal cost of production is about $30 an ounce, it's already down to $19. Go out and buy whatever you can buy. That is my honest and humble advice. The world is now on the edge of total collapse. So with investors around the world concerned about the tremendous turbulence in the global markets, including gold and silver, Egon von Geyres warned King World News that the world is now on the edge of total collapse. He's the founder of Matterhorn Asset Management out of Switzerland, and this is what he said. The whole world is panicking over Bernanke's hint the Fed might start tapering QE. Before we look at why that will be impossible for the Fed to do for any period of time in the U.S., let's first look at other areas that have major problems. So Fitch just came out and said China's credit model is falling apart. The liquidity in China is under tremendous pressure. The shadow banking system is now at $2 trillion, and 50% of that debt is rolled every 3 months, and 75% of China's debt is rolled over every 3 to 6 months. What that means is, if you can't refi, then it falls apart. You have to keep having new buyers buy this. I would call it refinance if you're in the real estate market. So this is what you need to understand. Credit has grown in China from 9 trillion to 23 trillion since Lehman Brothers crisis. That was in 2008. So in 5 years, it's gone from 9 to 23 trillion. Now total credit is over 200% of gross domestic product. Home prices are an absolutely massive 16 to 18 times income. But the massive credit creation the world has witnessed is leading to diminishing returns. And what he means is exactly what, in his parlance, verbiage, what we've been talking about, and that is they can pump more and more and more money out, but you get less and less benefit from it. So 1 new yen of credit creates only 0.15 won of GDP. And in 2008, that same credit pump produced 0.85 won of GDP. And so we're seeing the same thing in the U.S. They're printing more and more and more money, but not getting anything out of it. They're just inflating the bubble, but nothing's happening. So it's becoming more and more dangerous. The entire global financial system could become unhinged. And let's never, ever forget that when that happens, they're going to take your accounts out of your bank. So get your money out of the bank. Cash in the mattress is at first going to be much better than having it stolen out of the bank account. But remember, cash will be king, and then it'll be trash. Because when it goes into hyperinflation, nobody wants cash. You'll have to have an asset that holds its value. That's why I'm recommending you get some silver. It's less than $20 an ounce. Do you realize that evidently when they first went off the gold standard, silver was $20 an ounce on dollars that were worth 50 times more than what our dollars are worth today. It is a fabulous price. I would go get some. And don't even worry if the price goes down. That is not the point. Don't get this stuff with money that you need to buy groceries with. This is stuff that you can just stuff under your mattress and forget about. At least you'll have some hard asset to hold some value. And so they're saying it'll lead to a collapse in the Japanese yen, and the problems in Japan can't be solved. If we go to Europe, the Greek bond market is plunging, and blah, blah, blah. And remember, we talked about the fact is it's going to start in Japan, roll to Europe, come to the U.S. And so this was interesting because this felt true. He would also add that the average worker in the U.S., if you adjust properly for inflation, has had his or her weekly wage cut in half since 1973. We've lost 50% of our purchasing power over the last 4 decades. And food stamp usage is up to 50 million people. We only have 300 million, including all the people, babies. And we've got, 1 in 6 now on food stamps. And the real unemployment is 23%. So the world is going to fall apart. We're on the edge of collapse of this system. But we can have other systems. So let's not give up total hope. Let's just pull in everything we can so that as we shift to another system, we'll have a little bit of help doing that. Now, here is just one more article about holding physical gold and silver. The end is near, not just in sight. And they're starting to give you the idea. They're saying, well, gold will be above 2,000 an ounce by the end of the year. It'll reach 3,000. Silver will reach $100. The central bankers are just about out of gold. What's wrong with this picture? The bottom line is they don't really understand. This article doesn't really understand why it's being manipulated. There's so many articles out there, so many mainstream media, they do the talking points. They don't really know what's going on. So if you can help them understand, maybe they will at least personally start to connect with the new paradigm. Because the fact is, the price of gold and silver, even if you cannot get any, is not going to change in price until the central banks decide it's ready. Okay, so my recommendation right now is don't even care about the price. It's below cost. They can't even make it for that. Can't mine it for that. So go out and get whatever you can. Just hang on to it. And even if they drive the price down further, which they well may, it's already below cost and they've already shifted into long positions instead of shorts. So they're starting to expect, they're getting themselves lined up for this massive growth of wealth. Once they've gotten everything they think they can possibly get and broken every producer, broken every middle class person, broken everybody on the planet, taken all their money, then it's going to go off. And, 5,000, that's going to be nothing. I believe it'll go higher than that. But who knows? Who knows how a 70-year debt cycle is going to unwind? We just have to be prepared and recognize the signs and not worry, not get too greedy, not wait till the price goes down and then, whoa, can't get any. What you need right now is to have some. That's my bottom line. Oh, this is something else. Here you got a couple of these guys. I've just talked about their articles. They're saying the central banks are told to just head for the exit. Don't worry about anybody else. And of course we know that is exactly how they operate. They're going to cheat until finally it's like, okay, protect yourself, screw them. And so they'll stop cheating. They'll just ruin. You got to listen to this.
I agree with you about, I'm not a fan of the gold standard either, because that basically is just enabling central bank currency to circulate once again. What we have to do is...
It gives power to the central banks.
It does. It gives power to the governments to, again, debase the currency relative to gold. What we should really be doing is just enable gold itself to circulate as currency and get central banks, out of the picture. My view has been that, people say that gold is the barbarous relic, but I wrote an essay on this a few years ago explaining why central banks are the barbarous relic. In fact, when we first met at the GATA conference in Dawson City, that was the theme of my presentation. Gold Rush 21 in August of 2005. The theme at my presentation then was that central banks are the barbarous relic, and that the sooner we recognize that and go back to a free market monetary system, a true free market monetary system, one that's enables people to contract with one another on a private basis, and private contract rules supreme over government contract. And secondly, governments don't interfere with the market. Have a free market unfettered by government interference. And government's role is to basically maintain the rule of law and ensure that property rights are protected. That's the way
and the common defense.
And
those
exactly.
are the three things that
which is what the Constitution was basically written for.
Yeah.
Common market with a common defense.
Too. I just fear that that's not the direction that we're going currently. I have a feeling that in the U.S. the economy is going to continue getting worse because of we're reading from the script of the 20s and 30s right now.
Yeah.
It's a replay. I mean, we've seen this play before. It's just got different actors this time.
It's interesting that you say that, because this morning I spent 2 hours at the Bundesbank Museum, and I highly recommend this museum to anybody who comes to Frankfurt. In fact, it's probably worth coming to Frankfurt just to spend some time in that museum.
Yes.
Because if you really want to learn about money and currency, just go through the Bundesbank Museum for a couple of hours and read all of the examples of German monetary history. It's so clearly explained. They have videos, they have photos, pictures, all types of things, and you'll learn a lot in 2 hours about how money and currency really works in the modern economy. And you will also see the importance of gold and silver and stable money in terms of achieving the standards of living and the lifestyle we all want to live.
What amazes me is if you're, they wrote all of those, there's a display of a coin or of hyper-inflated currency that, with trillion mark bills or whatever, and they'll have a little couple of paragraphs talking about it, and it's all an argument for free market gold and silver.
Exactly.
It's like every single thing that they say about central banking is an argument against central
banking. Yeah.
If you're coming to it from like our point of view,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, the Bundesbank from 1950 up until the 1980s was very serious about its role in terms of maintaining a stable currency, because the people who were managing the Bundesbank then, in the 50s and 60s and the 70s, they had in their living memory the monetary turmoil after the war. So they took very, very seriously to achieve a stable monetary system, because they knew the economic and political problems that would occur when money was not stable. But by the late 1980s, early 1990s, the people who were running the Bundesbank no longer had in their living memory the experiences after the Second World War, because they were just too young to have lived through it. And as a consequence, you started seeing a little bit of moving away.
And history is doomed to repeat itself. If we don't pay attention to these lessons, and I found myself wondering, when I'm watching these guys, I was wondering, do they really understand that the bankers, the central bankers, create money out of nothing? Do they really understand that all this money that central banks, the Federal Reserve notes, this is all just debt to the banks and we all pay interest on it? I found myself thinking they don't. And I think we should make sure that these guys understand that it starts with the creation of the credit. That's the fraud. That's the abuse that's happening. And that's the birthright of the people. It's our right as humanity to not have to pay someone else that we don't even know part of our life and effort. That's all we've got, is our time, energy, and our minds. But we have to give that to them just to use a medium of exchange. See, and they're talking about using gold and making private agreements and stuff. And others more learned than I am in public banking and in currency, I'm sure would have great arguments as to why that would or would not work. But the issue is they know there's a problem. They know it's a problem. They see it coming. They're talking about it. It's going to affect them too. Now, just a real quick, here's how they're breaking us also. The government and big corporations are spying, and I'm not going to really go through this. You can read the article. It talks about basically using encrypted passwords to protect all your stuff. But the fact is, they say that they can remotely turn on microphones and video without you even knowing it's on your phone, even if the phone is off, on your cameras, if they're hooked to the computer, and they can spy on you and listen to what you're saying. They can look at what you're writing when you type it. And the fact is, it is what it is. And at this point, I don't believe there's really anything that any one of us can really do to protect ourselves. We just need to be aware of how that is, and probably try to beef up our personal face-to-face contacts in it. So the nice thing about this article, though, is that it has all these links to private contractors, links to the American government's collecting all your phone calls and all this stuff. And so it's just a nice history, a nice encyclopedia of the links. That's why I wanted to talk about it. Now, they're still investigating scandals. Of course there's a scandal at Fannie. There's a scandal everywhere. And that is the point. All of these scandals have been used to subtract wealth from you and ruin markets for the benefit of the people that are the banks or on the side of the banks. It's all about the banks versus the people. And so it's no surprise that there's some scandal again at Fannie Mae. This happens to be about kickbacks to get the listings. Now, they're breaking foreclosure fighters, and I want to talk briefly about this because right now, many people that used to view, are normal viewers, they are at her hearing this morning. It's supposed to be at 8:30. We have no idea if it was on time. They're expecting to probably take all day. And this is an article that Neil Garfield has written specifically about this. And I will just briefly comment on what I know about it in general terms, and also read the article, because the bottom line is the law, now listen, It's not being applied the same to some people as to others. Gee, what a shock. The banks get a free pass and ride, the people do not. That's what I've been saying. So it's completely hypocritical, it's completely fraudulent, but it happens, and here's a case in point that's happening. Barbara Bratton recorded a corrective deed and a warranty deed on her home after the bank sold it to somebody else, and that person is now on title. And so this is what Neil says. In my judgment, based on the scant facts and documents supplied to me this far, there's no doubt that Barbara Bratton did own the property, and probably still does if the law was applied properly. He knows of case, and of course, part of the objection is that they arrested her, put her in prison on $250,000 bail. All she did was record a couple of documents, and on the property that used to be her home. She claims it still is, and again, this is the point. When the banks are foreclosing with forged and fraudulent documents, that is void. So the fact is that still her house or not? Well, it's supposed to be. Legally it would be, except because the judges and the recorder's office are not following the law, then they're going to say it isn't, it's somebody else's. And so she, yes, is one of the members of the Occupy movement, a very strong foreclosure fighter. And they have charges against her that it sounds like they include terrorism. And of course, let's understand, I've seen this in TV shows, I'm sure you have too. They're going to slap on anybody, a dissident, any kind of label that gives them all kinds of authority and hurts the person. Call her a terrorist, there. Done. How many times have I said that? It seems that some inference of that sort was used in getting bail set at $250,000. And some of the documents she filed did talk about, they used the term sovereign citizen. Neil says that concept is a contradiction in terms. If you're a citizen, you're subject to the laws of the jurisdiction in which you are a citizen. If you are sovereign, then you're announcing that you are outside the bounds of the rules, regulations, and laws of government. It would seem to me that the use of the word sovereign might be tantamount to renouncing your citizenship and making you an alien, subject to the immigration and naturalization agencies of the federal government, which is a federal question, not a state question. Some of the documents included that term. Both did, actually. So I find that a little confusing and worrisome. In his opinion, in Neil's opinion, the deed issued on a foreclosure is void if there is no consideration. Check with a lawyer in your jurisdiction before you act on that. If the party submitting the credit bid, so that's what the bank did when they took it back at auction, they submitted a credit bid, has no proof that they paid for the origination and or acquisition of the loan, then all their actions constitute the same value as a wild deed, which is customarily ignored by title examiners and title agents. The trouble is, you've got U.S. Bank doing this. So is it going to be possible to hold U.S. Bank liable for this? It's unknown. If in fact the situation goes to as far as establishing that no transaction occurred in which a purchase or funding of the loan occurred, then fraud, utterance of a false instrument, and the rest of the charges pending against her now actually should be brought against U.S. Bank and the other parties that contributed to the plan leading to the theft of her title. Well, yes, it's supposed to. But like I said, the laws don't necessarily get applied the same for everybody. It is the latter situation that, in my opinion, is the dominant permeating fact pattern throughout the financial industry, in which they put claims of securitization ahead of proof that it ever occurred, as a cover-up for a racketeering scheme using a Ponzi structure, new investments to pay off old investors. Based upon the facts and documents I've heard and seen, Bratton went through the usual foreclosure fight where the judge failed to apply the law properly and require proof of ownership of the loan, mistakenly applying a presumption that is rebuttable, just as the Maryland Supreme Court did last week in a decision that will come back and haunt them. So needless to say, she lost. The sale went forward with U.S. banks submitting a credit bid on behalf of an asset pool that does not appear to exist in reality because it was never funded and therefore was incapable of paying for the funding of the origination of the loan nor for the acquisition of the loan. The usual fabricated papers, this means the forged and fake foreclosure documents, fabricated papers, were submitted to the recorder's office, and the usual untrue proffers by counsel apparently were present as well. So like I've said on this blog, acting within the system, she went to the police, showing them that she was alleging fraud, fabrication, forgery, and uttering a false instrument and recording it. The police refused to investigate, saying it was a civil matter. And I hear this over and over and over from all kinds of people fighting the fraudulent foreclosure of their properties. The police, la, we don't want to hear it. Don't talk to me. They said it's a civil matter. So again, acting within the system, she went and filed a corrective deed in order to give legal notice to the world that the title was still in dispute. Meanwhile, of course, I already said, the bank sold to a third party who may or may not have been a straw man. It really is relatively immaterial because now they're going to hurt another person. Sell it to a real person and make them take the hit, not even our straw man. And, you know, a straw man would be somebody within the banking cartel, a wholly owned subsidiary that goes out and buys these properties to make more profits on them. So chances are since she was given such a hassle, they sold it to a real person. So now her efforts will screw somebody else. And so she's fighting because the only basis for possession is not that she didn't pay her rent, but because title changed from her to a third party. Despite their refusal to investigate her claims, on the basis of their determination that this was a matter to be resolved in the civil courts, then of course as soon as she recorded the documents, they did investigate her claims and found them to be, to violate criminal. So now they've filed criminal charges against her. My view is that without the investigation, the best one could say about the police action in this case is that they were premature. The worst is that they were doing the bidding of the banks, who have achieved a level of influence on law enforcement that is unprecedented in protecting themselves from prosecution for mass crimes against humanity and bringing mortgage fraud and other criminal charges against those whom they are throwing under the bus or otherwise want to silence. The police were wrong when they first told Bratton this was a civil matter. The theft of millions of homes based on false, fabricated, fraudulent documents corroborated by perjury and intentional misrepresentation to the court is a huge deal. It ripped open the fabric of our society and diminished respect for all three branches of government. Now that the police department in San Bernardino County has thrown its hat into the ring with this bogus criminal charge, it is time to force them to politically investigate bank crimes, regardless of what assurances they were given from the Bush and Obama administrations to the contrary. And there's a press release. So the fact is, any person fighting foreclosure and recording documents on their property, the chances are almost 100% that you will be charged criminally, even though it's the banks that have done all the criminal mess. And please be aware, protect yourself, keep yourself out of jail so that you can help fight the fraud better. There's more and more whistleblowers coming. There's more and more people getting to fight back. I wanted to end today's show with a Beat Back the Bank Attack. This is a fascinating song and video, and I believe this link should be shared to everybody because it is so true. And listen as the words are said to what they're doing to beat back the bank attack, and let's copy that everywhere we live. Thanks, guys. Go protect yourselves. Oh yes, before we play, I just want to do this. These are the protection ideas we talked about 3 weeks ago. If you have money in the bank, take it out, put it in some cash, because when they shut the banks down, which they're going to do before they steal your accounts, you won't have any money. You'll be able to line up at the ATM. So save yourself some grief, get some cash. And if you have savings, I would really convert that to something more solid than the US dollar. Just my opinion. I would definitely if you're in the inner city, I would recommend that you start thinking now about where you can go when things start to break down into martial law. If there's no food, there's people with no money, there's going to be looting and chaos in the streets. So I would figure out some place to go. Get your passport. Have extra gas on hand. These things are just smart, okay? I really hope we don't use them, don't need them. You can blame me, but at this point, I'd rather you were prepared. If you have a home for sale or you have some equity in your home, it is really something to seriously consider getting an investor to buy it from you so that you can rent back. That way you've gotten your equity out of the house. If the prices collapse, remember these are asset bubbles. They have bubbled real estate up. The prices are bubbling. They're still way above affordability. And so get whatever equity you can while you still can. Because once the asset bubble falls, no one will buy it. It's probably going to break the real estate market. That's my upshot of what I see happening, at least for a time. There just won't be transactions. People won't be buying and selling. It's going to be not very pleasant. Food, stock up, canned goods, paper goods, try to grow your own. On water, try to have some extra, maybe drill a well if you're on a property that can, get water tank storage. These are just common sense protections. And of course on the air was for the chemtrails and HARP, and at this point I believe the crashes are probably going to come sort of like this, maybe in that order. So I just wanted to put that out there again, because you need to protect yourself, and then we need to fight back, and we need to connect with others that are willing to fight back. This is a fascinating video. With that, I'll leave you. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
Homie, alright, you talking, right? We're gonna see what's up. I'm gonna be right back.
However you want to get it poppin'. D.A.D. all day.
Whoa, what's up,
Gangsta
man?
all
Y'all
day, homie. Poppin'.
You ain't wax your brother, man?
Yeah.
Yo, come here, man. Let me holler at y'all for y'all do something all y'all regret, man. First of all, that's not gangster, man. Y'all know who's really a gangster? Brian Moynihan's gangster.
Who?
Jamie Dimon's gangster. Yeah, who? Exactly. Y'all don't even know. Brian Moynihan is the CEO of Bank of America, and Jamie Dimon is the CEO of Chase. They putting families out their home. And this house right here is in foreclosure. Whose house is this?
My house.
This is your house? Your moms know y'all in foreclosure?
Nah,
I bet she don't, man. What y'all beefing about anyway, man?
kids.
Who cares?
Yes. I don't know, but it's whatever.
Nah. See, you shoot him, he shoots you, you kill him. Banks own these prisons, man, and they get paid from that. So you just putting money in their pocket, man. So y'all need to dead that. Y'all can come to our meeting every Tuesday. You know what I mean? Y'all come there, I'll show y'all how to organize this anger y'all got with the right enemy. Bank versus America. Y'all ready to fight these banks?
Yeah, man, I guess so, man.
That's what it is, man. Me go in here and talk to your mother, try to help y'all save this house.
Hey, yo, good looking out, bro.
No doubt, man.
It's time to wake up and get with the movement. Hear the message in the music now. We can fight back, or we can lay down, or beat back the bank attack and stay proud. They got bailed out, we getting sold out. Some living underwater in their own house. They hear the word foreclosure, they get scared and think it's all over. But nah, the fight just begun. It ain't gonna be easy, but it must be won. Cause Bank of America's bad for America. Congress held hostage, they kidnapped the treasurer. This ain't the dream in the land of America, but we could change that if we stand up together. Demand something better than the status quo. We elect, they neglect, then they have to go. We gon' beat back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. We gon' beat back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. Set up with the people, yeah, and down with the bank, those greedy banks. Set up with the people, yeah, and down with the bank, those dirty banks. Yeah, it's capitalism, political arcade. Stop the eviction. elections, we picket and blockade, march and rally for social justice. Forged signatures got the robo busted. Do the right thing now, reduce the principle. Job growth, increase residuals. We're solidified, can't divide and conquer. When we fight, we win. The pride to prosper. With people power, we equal the power. Civil disobedience to veto the dollar. Close our bank accounts, oppose their policy. Loan mod programs don't work, it's a lottery. So what do we do when the banks attack? Stand up, fight back. Yeah, and we don't want no cash for keys. We want to enter this catastrophe rapidly. Beat back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. We gon' beat back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. Straight up with the people, yeah, yeah. And down with the bank, those greedy banks. Straight up with the people, yeah, yeah. And down with the bank, those dirty banks. Fannie Mae, you can't hide. We can see your greedy side. It's pain for the many, profits for the few. Wells Fargo, we're coming for you. Get your voice back. Tell your story. Yell out, this is city life territory. We got the right to the city. Vida Urbana, life in the city. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Stimulus pack, first class Bora Bora. Meanwhile, we staring in the eye of the storm. Earthquakes, hurricanes, trying to hold on. But U.S. Bank, we're here to prove. But we shall not be moved. Only a judge can evict you. You wanna fight for your home? Then we'll fight with you. Beat back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. We gon' beat back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. Stay up with the people, yeah, yeah. And down with the bank, those dirty banks. Stay up with the people, yeah, yeah. And down with the bank, those greedy banks. The bank, yeah. Those dirty banks. The bank, yeah. Those greedy banks.